We have a quorum. We have most of the anticipated audience in place, and we have our guests as well. And that clock is fast for the record, so we're starting a couple minutes early. Nothing wrong with that, right? Okay, very good. So I will call this meeting of the Intergovernmental Cooperation Authority to order. Welcome everyone, and our first agenda item is approval of the minutes for the January 22nd meeting. Those were mailed to you in advance. Does anybody have any comments, corrections? Seeing none, do we have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Chair report. Yeah, in the bit of time since we met last, we've had an opportunity to meet with the mayor. I've actually had an opportunity to talk to her a couple of times. We're in a couple different hats, but we had our official Intergovernmental Cooperation Authority meeting last week, and we had a bit of a calendar mix up. So she actually came out of another meeting and met with me. But it was just me meeting with her, and so the rest of the staff stayed in the other meeting they were already scheduled for. We do have the calendar ironed out for the balance of the year, so we will be meeting in advance of each of our meetings that are coming up. So that's all good. We have a question of just general finances. Something we'll be talking about a little bit later. There was a little bit of a discrepancy in the February statements between Brian and the controller's office, and I think we're going to hear more about that. But we spend most of our time talking about economic development and related matters and direction of the city. And some of those we're actually going to be talking about a little bit later when we talk about our 293 report, or 203 report rather. But in any event, I think one of the things we find is that the city does have a genuine interest in pursuing economic development, but not in the planned way that we've been promoting for the last several years. And so there is certainly good evidence of the city's outreach to individual businesses, both on attraction and on retention. There is some sense of where we have neighborhood issues. There is some sense of where the impediments lie to economic development. So, for example, permitting processes and how they can either become protracted or can bend a little bit from ordinance requirements or some things like that. But we're still trying to pursue full-on honest economic development plan that takes a look at demographics. It takes a look at long-term trends. It takes a look at anticipated trends. All the marketplace pressures, how neighborhoods are affected, simple things like the conversion of office space into apartment space, and does that create enough of a population balance downtown that might be able to attract some businesses back, because now what's missing in state workers is being made up by actual residents, for example. But we don't know any of that because it hasn't been undertaken in any distinct and comprehensive way. And so that's what we continue to argue for. We did talk about the conversations that we've had previously with Gloria Martin Roberts, and when she was here with us, and then we had separate meetings with her as well, where there is an intent to gather a group of stakeholders of all different stripes, people representing neighborhoods, people representing businesses, people representing developers, and have some of those conversations about what are our opportunities, what are our obstacles, and what's the vision going to be. But that's still seems to be an intent, but still does not seem to have progressed to any great degree. So that was the largest part of the content of our meeting. We did have some discussion about how state workforce is going to transition and whether there is going to be any improvement in, from the city's perspective at least, in the number of people who are actually coming into the offices to work. It doesn't appear there's an immediate prospect. She said she has actually talked to the governor about it. I don't know that it was a planned meeting. My impression was it was, we're chatting. Hey, by the way, this would really help. But there is a clear recognition that that is an issue for the city, continuing effects of COVID. And she's not, I don't think, terribly optimistic that we're going to see a marked improvement anytime soon. In fact, we have pressures in the other direction. Some of the state office buildings slated for closure, most notably the education building over here in the market. So those are the things that we've been through. We've also, Audrey and I had an opportunity to meet with Senator Kim. And the purpose for that was to make sure there's still legislative support for the task that we've been assigned. And then concurrent with that is to solicit her help in recruitment for members of the board. We'll be talking about that a little bit later on the agenda as well. Do you have anything that you want to add that to me?
It was wonderful to meet with her, certainly in her increased capacity as a senator now, and go back to 2018 when she was the primary driver to get this established, and to see that truly her heart is still with the city, wanting to make it a better place. And you could sense some of her frustration as well for the lack of forward movement relative to the economic development plan, because she wants to see the capital city robust. And again, when we start in 2018, and if we're 6 years later, if we only imagine what we could have done if we'd started 6 years ago. So if not now, when? And yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Did the subject ever come up between you and the mayor of our offer to help pay for membership in the Pennsylvania Downtown Center?
I didn't bring it up this time, no,
Okay, so
but I'll renew that.
because obviously that's an entity that has a tremendous amount of positive that they can help the administration with economic development.
And maybe our colleagues from the city could bring that back up to the mayor, because it's a resource that's right on 3rd Street, across from the Broad Street Market, and that we're not doing it, and that we have never applied for a Main Street grant is just dismal. What was your organization?
The organization, the Pennsylvania Downtown Center,
PA down.
PA Downtown, and there is a membership fee to join, but the ICA has for many years offered the city to cover that membership fee on behalf of the city.
So which membership fee?
Pennsylvania Downtown Center. If the mayor, it's obviously up to the mayor, and then that organization helps local municipalities. They work with DCED, to close partners in helping communities develop community and economic development plans and projects. And so that'd be a great resource for the city to have. And so we would like to help facilitate that relationship going forward.
Don't they do the Main Street programs?
They do. It's a little, things have changed over time a little bit. The new program is Main Street Matters, which I know DCD is busy signing up municipalities to the Main Street Matters program, which is a slight variation on the old Main Street program, similar intent and similar guidelines. And a lot of municipalities recently received a lot of funding for projects through Main Street Matters. And so there's opportunity there through DCED. And obviously anything to help the downtown would be beneficial from the point of view of the ICA board.
Same, here's the table we'd like.
Okay. Thank
You
you.
let Bob up here, so.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
You got the
you
18.
may as well join us, because we're gonna be talking about you anyhow, so.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Let's now go to our financial update, Ryan.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everybody.
You might have to be a little louder.
Yeah,
Get
I'm
up
just
here.
gonna say I can't be my soft spoken self. I
No.
think a competition.
You're soft-spoken?
So, yeah, my handout that I believe the members up here have. And there's 5 pages to it. I'll go to the first page, page 105. which is the general fund, and this is basically the same format I use every month when reporting to PADCED. And it's self-explanatory. It's you see each month of the quarter and the quarter to date activity for both revenue and expenses and
I can turn off the AC.
okay, all right.
This means no hot air during these discussions, though. We're turning the air conditioning off.
Put the grand karaoke machine next time. Never noticed that clock. Is that clock new?
Yeah.
And it's fast.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Better, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. All right. So again, this report is for each month and quarter to date. And, I think one of the things that comes across every month, Bureau of Financial Management does its report, and of course, the Controller's Office does their formatted report for the elected officials. And the format is different, of course. But they're pulling, the source of both reports is our financial system. So they're pulling the same information. The main difference that happens there with that, where my report is based on cash, essentially because the DCED report is formatted in that way, but I'm not ignoring the encumbrances. That's actually on the same. There's two different reports that I send to DCED that show just that, the outstanding encumbrances for whatever the period is. There's a column that specifically identifies that. So I think what happened with February, combination of really February is not the greatest month for revenue. And also when the tax billing goes out, the discount period of real estate revenue really doesn't start to roll in until March. So in February, even though we do have EIT revenue coming in, but it's not as robust. So I think what the controller's report reflected for February was, my cash position, which is on here, I should say the city's cash position of 17.7 million. They reduced that by the encumbrances, and that took it down to like 9 million. But that, not to be, I didn't want that to sound alarming in the sense, oh, that's the city's cash position. It certainly was not, but they were just factoring out the encumbrances, of course, which are significant. So I've added that to this schedule at the end of March. Our $23.4 million in cash, less the encumbrances of 7.9. And that's higher than usual, mainly because of what our facilities department has been dealing with, largely with Broad Street Market. Of that 7.9 million, 2.6 million is attributed to facilities, which includes the Broad Street Market activity. Also, our vehicle maintenance center has 1.8 million of those outstanding encumbrances. That's the other big taker on that outstanding balance. Police and fire combined to about 1.1 million in outstanding encumbrances. And the last big piece is our IT department, which has over 700,000 in outstanding. And that predominantly reflects the commitment that we still have with Tyler Technologies for the new ERP system and the other items that the IT utilizes. And we're still utilizing the mainframe, so there's still costs that go along with that. And if you go to the second page, 2 of 5, this is the comparative year to date, 2025 versus where we were last year. This not yeah. Thank you. Sure. If I give you this, will you stop it or interrupt me?
You know how many people made that request?
I'm just kidding. All right. So year to date, 3 months comparison. And what's interesting on this schedule to me is the city is fairly comparative both for revenue and expenses. We're lagging behind last year by over $700,000, but that is primarily due to medical stop loss happening in January of 2024. So we don't have that, we haven't realized really anything significant in the way of stop loss against medical expenditures so far this year. And I am seeing, which is good news, a calming down of those significant claims. So I'm hoping that, continues throughout the year as there were some extraordinary hits last year. On the expense side, it's very comparable. There's a total immaterial change of $45,000 when you look at expenses. So that's page 2. Any questions before I move on to page 3?
I have one question, so again, Mr. Chairman. It has to do with the use of encumbrances in general. Would you say, from your experience, Brian, that the encumbrances are related to actual intended purchases, or are they what might be better be described as blanket purchase orders or budgetary items that departments are using, which may not be tied eventually to actual or realistic purchases?
Well, thank you, Jeff, because I wanted to voice just this during this meeting to just reinforce that with encumbrances. And I'm currently doing an analysis of year-end encumbrances because the city has always, and I mean always, still had an outstanding balance at the end of every year. So it's actually that impact lessens the effect on cash come the end of the year. But it's a mixed bag, Jeff. There are obviously there's more capital related items that are in play that are being whittled away at as we go, throughout the year. And I would have to go back and review that, but there are some open POs that are meant for what the anticipated needs are. For example, VMC may have opened like an overall PO for parts and supplies for like $20,000 for the year, something to that effect. So it may or may not end up being, spent, come at any point in time, but especially at year end. And then what happens is we have these open balances at the end of the year. Not all of them are carried or rolled forward into the new year. Some of them can be closed because there's no longer a need, for that commitment.
But the concern is that by having inaccurate encumbrances, it's
Right.
hard to have a realistic view of the needed resources. I know from a department director's point of view, it makes perfect sense. Just encumber the whole year, we'll whittle away at it between January and December. But
Right.
that's not proper planning. That's sort of the lazy way of doing it.
And I believe we have tightened that up because I think our through the purchasing compliance director, I think she's frowning more upon those type of, just, what's your budget? Just go ahead and encumber it for the year. That type of effect.
Good, thank you.
And plus we now have, with our executive staff, our BA and finance director, they're looking at that because they're in the approval queues, right, when it comes to that, which includes department person all the way up to the controllers. And it starts with the purchasing manager as well. So she looks at it from the get-go.
And we just went through the procurement process with everybody in the last couple of months, just to tighten it up a little bit.
Sure.
And probably gonna do an ultimate rewrite, but nothing major is gonna change. But we just, it was done probably 3-4 years ago.
Sure.
So we have looked at it, want to tighten it up a little bit, get rid of any loose stuff that's there and just narrow it down.
It's a common occurrence in municipal government, especially amongst department directors, because it takes more work to plan it project by project, or even, week by week, than it is to just open a blanket PO, let it sit there and say, well, apply it to the PO whenever you buy tools or equipment or whatever. But that doesn't give you proper accounting. I understand it from their point of view,
Right.
but from an accounting point of view, that's just a little
Yeah.
too broad.
Sure.
So,
And there are encumbrances that are, key to a time frame, like certain projects that happen. that
Sure.
we know they're gonna be extended throughout the year, so that's reasonable in terms of whatever the project might be. Whether it's, we've encumbered what we anticipate
Sure.
for Broad Street Market.
I was gonna say, I was gonna use the F&B Stadium project,
Right.
which had very complicated encumbrances, but that was very carefully done. As opposed to just a broad stroke of it, using the encumbrances. Thank you.
All right, yes. Oh, you're welcome. So, page 3 of 5, now this is kind of going to what I'm trying to work out. Really for our revenue analysis, which is the key, when it comes to everything, our future budget, and also to update. What Jeffrey needs, for the section 3 report to extend those projections. So I thought it would be good to go back and take a look at monthly revenue. And when you eyeball this, really the streams are very, very consistent, I believe, over the years. Two things the first thing I want to point out, in 2022, there's a bit of a fluctuation for March and April, where you see for March, it's down 8 million. Why is that? And that really, if you might recall, the 2022 budget was Mayor Williams' first budget. She opened the budget and it wasn't passed until February. So there was a delay in getting the tax billing out. So that created a delay in realizing a lot of the discount money. And the shaded areas I've highlighted in 2022 are reconciled out down below. Primarily, it's the ARPA funding that was transferred into the general fund, predominantly for revenue replacement. And of course, the Broad Street Market, the insurance proceeds the city has realized. So over the course of, you can see that 2022, 23, and 24, those particular shadings is why you're seeing such a difference, in comparison to prior years. So 2025 right now, the numbers are fairly comparable when you look at what has transpired over January, February, and March. And in total, starting in 2020, the city was around 65.2 million in general fund total. And then it started to increase, not just mainly from these extraordinary items, but I look at the EIT revenue that really started to kick off in 2021. Where in 2021, EIT was at 13.5 million. In 2022, it went up to 15.8, 23, 17.5, 24, 18.2. So I think it is done peak or increasing at those increments. And we've accordingly budgeted EIT revenue in that concern. And actually through March, we're actually slightly ahead of pace budget wise on EIT. So that's good news. Any questions on that schedule? Next up on page 4, I'll move to the Neighborhood Services Fund. And this is the same schedule you've seen in the past from me. I've just added some expansion in the midsection under expenditures. I broke out what sanitation and city services are. That's the public works piece. And then parks maintenance is much smaller, of course, but at least you can see the difference there. The 3 boroughs are in the second column. And then, of course, the older funds that still have revenue coming in from associated liens, the old sanitation and disposal funds are included. But that's all collapsed or consolidated into the Neighborhood Services Fund. Cash position at the end of March is essentially the same as where we started at the beginning of the year. But I've also included the encumbrances that are outstanding as of the end of March, which brings it down to 4.5 million in budgetary fund balance. And that's the similar explanation that I just went through with the general on encumbrances. Page 5 of 5, staying with the Neighborhood Services Fund, is the same revenue analysis that I just went through for the general fund. And every month, it is fairly consistent. There are some outliers. The Neighborhood Services Fund began in 2016. And it was up to, how did it get to be 17.3 million at the start? And that's primarily, there was an interfund transfer of 2.3 million from these older funds, sanitation and disposal. And then that was a partial interfund transfer. In 2017, we did another 5 million from those funds. That's why it's so high. 2019 is another unusually high year of 19.2 million. That's because it includes the $850,000 that Laxwama cut loose from the security deposits that came out of the strong plan. That was 1.35 million initially, and they gave the city back 850,000. There was also an extraordinary amount of settlements on trash-related bills that came by way of the liens being filed and settled. That was 1.5 million. And it was also the beginning of steel taking effect in 2019. Steel began in 2019, and of course, it's still active. And then 2021 is when the other two programs, Pembroke and Paxtang, became active for the city. Last couple of items for 2022, it includes the one time the city did receive a tonnage rebate from Laxwama based on the actual disposed tonnage of refuse for the year. 2023, there's an increase there when you compare it to 22, but that's mainly because of interest income and rising rates and a significant amount more of interest income generated. 2024 reflects about $800,000 better in both refuse and disposal revenue, and that has what relates to that includes, of course, the city increasing the residential rates in 2024 by 10%, I believe. Right. Yep. And then also there were the PennDOT right of way receipts that came in due to the I-83 expansion and PennDOT, securing city land. There was about $540,000 that was realized into this fund. So that's another a one-time occurrence that you typically don't see on a yearly basis. So for 2025 right now, 4.5 million for the first quarter. If you and this fund is more where you can relate it on, you can do some annualizing. You can't do that so much on the general fund because of right. So if I do that, that's like 18 million for the year. But then we've also budgeted another over $3 million in interfund support from mainly the biggest piece of that is the $2 million that's been committed from the American Rescue Plan Act to apply to past due balances in this fund. So that gets us to over 21 million, and our budget for 2025, the original budget is right around that 21.5 million in anticipated resources for 2020.
Well, I have a question about the Laxwama money that moves. We pay tipping fee, obviously, for use of the incinerator, but then they pay the city back in a host municipality fee, which is goes the other way, which is different. But that's not reflected in the neighborhood services fund. The host municipality fee is diverted to another location in the budget, correct?
It's actually in a separate fund
Okay.
that was established. It's the host municipalities fee fund. And you're right, that's a quarterly payment that comes in based on the tonnage. There's a calculation. And that fund was appropriated and budgeted by the mayor and city council.
And that's based on the tonnage that comes in, not just from Harrisburg tipping at the incinerator, but all the other municipalities and trash haulers who also tip at the Harrisburg incinerator. And you may not be familiar, but
Yeah, but it doesn't include, for example, like the three boroughs.
No.
I don't believe it includes those, but yes, you're right.
So the private waste, like if York Waste tipped at the incinerator, that would be part of the calculation of the host
Of the
municipality.
host fee, correct, correct, yes.
Sort of serves, they balance each other, even though they're separate in different places and used for different things. There is some sort of
Give and take.
give and take between what the city pays, but what the city receives back.
That's right, that's right. So, any questions on that schedule? And just to give you a real-time live update, like cash position wise, right now in the general fund, as of today, we're sitting around 21.4 million in general fund cash, with about a week, to go in additional treasurer's reports. And now the neighborhood services fund is right around 6.2 million. So it's been a very good active month for that fund. It's been a while since it's been at that level. That's encouraging.
Other questions from the board? Comments?
That's all I have. Unless anybody has more comments or questions.
Very good.
Brian was really helpful for some questions.
Yeah, I'm gonna get him in the next section, next section, so.
Yes.
You'll get him.
Okay, so the next section is the section 2 and 3 report, which we've been working on, is
Yeah.
due in just a few days.
But we-
Okay, well, yeah,
Don't put any more pressure. But it is coming along. I would like to report to the board that, there's two parts to the process. There's the part that, the city staff helps prepare both, statistical tables as well as some narrative items which are included in the report. And then there's other parts which are a reflection of the board's positions on evaluating the progress that the city has made over the last year. So I've been working obviously with the chair on putting together those thoughts. And we will send those back out to everybody on the board to review and to add comments and opinions as we move forward in the next week. With the hope of getting it, well, it's required that it be postmarked by the end of the month. So I believe that we will get there. The pressure is gonna be on Brian and the city staff. I assume that the work that the city is doing is progressive work. Is that the best way to put it?
It is progressing, yes. We've actually, we pulled in some narratives already.
Good.
For what you're looking for, and kind of what I touched upon here is going to those tables.
Right.
That need the updates.
And I wanted to turn this back to the board because I know, for example, that, or do you have opinions about this as well? Today, we received correspondence from the mayor that signifies the 2025 budget, as was adopted at the end of the last year, represents an update to the 5-year plan. But what we've seen, speaking on behalf of the ICA, is we've seen a lot of changes in the projections in a relatively short period of time. So if you go to the all the way back to last fall, which wasn't that long ago, the city delivered to the ICA projections as part of the 2025 5-year plan. And then a mere month or two later was a whole different set of numbers related to the 2025 budget. So things did change somewhat materially between the 5-year plan and the budget, even though they were close in time. And I suspect, Brian, and only you could tell the board directly, that the tables you're working on this spring look, we're gonna see even more changes in forward projections over the next 5 years.
Again, I harken back to revenue, and part of what I've seen in my analysis is, and also I'd like to suggest or recommend to, of course, our business administrator, our finance director, and the mayor. It's just, you know, how it is when you're working with numbers and you're looking at historical figures and actuals, that something around 73 million, I'm just talking about the general fund, is really, to me, the available guideline. And to really make an effort to utilize that and build the budget based on it. What I know, Jeff, what you're referring to, what happened between September and December of last year, the revenue that went in was really reflecting the 5-year plan. But then, of course, expenses and needs were communicated, but we utilized available funding sources that were available, not wishing or hoping that they would be, but it was a matter, and I can remember talking to the mayor about, this is an option to make this work, but it's not something that's going to be there year in and year out. And then also, when you do the budget, you have to be careful with personnel costs, and I know that gets complicated, but you got to be careful of not, as far as locking yourself in, because it has impacts on future years. I know this board knows that, but I think really the opportunity is I think the city still has an opportunity, to build a budget that's more reflective of recurring revenues.
Part of the concerns that we've seen in the past is an overdependence on fund balance.
Right.
In the out years of the forecast to balance
To make it
growing.
to bridge the gap.
That's right, and that as a practice that in general we try not to recommend. Because it diminishes your fund balance is not a limitless source of resources to balance the city's needs. But it's hard to do it's hard enough to do a 1-year projection when you do a new budget every year. And of course, the whole point of the 5-year plan exercise is to make us all think not a year end, but 4 more years after that. But there's a purpose to that, which is that we're trying to make wise decisions in the long term, not just in the near term. So we've had that struggle in the past, and I'm concerned that fund balance, use is going to rear its head in the Section 203 report charts that you're working on. So I don't know, while we don't have them in front of us, I know that the board, I don't need to speak on behalf of the board, but the board has been concerned in the past of an over-reliance on fund balance, right? Which diminishes the availability of other uses of fund balance, like one-time uses. For example, capital investment using fund balance, which makes a little bit more sense because it's a once and done. So you take X number of dollars out of the fund balance, you buy something, you have the thing you bought. But if you're using it just to balance your operations, that's a zero-sum game, because the year after you still have those operating expenses and you have no resource to commit to it in the long term.
And I think also it's why we continue to recommend that the city get out of Act 47 as soon as possible, so that it can enter the credit market again, so that when extraordinary one-time expenses come, or planned expenses, that they're not having to come out of the operating budget. So I think that's an encouragement to the leadership here. I know there's movement on the court cases. We've never really become privy to where that's going, but if the city really does think it's a huge pot of gold at the end, I think others think that's not the case. So to keep holding out and not taking advantage, obviously borrowing is expensive, but not even having that as an option cuts off your nose to spite your face.
Mr. Chairman, if you have any other concerns about the 203 report, we did distribute the executive summary to everybody. While we weren't able to give you the detail, I think the executive summary is sufficient to give you a sense of the tone of what the report's gonna say. It's very similar to previous years.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it is very much comparable to prior years, both in turn, pro and con.
Right.
Pro that the city's financial condition is very much better than when we started this exercise. And we appreciate, particularly the professional staff that's been brought in, finance and the work that you've been doing, to improve all aspects of practice, plus the supports of, upgrading the computer system, all the rest of that, helps us have a better understanding, but there's still the nagging issues of the economic development plan, the exit from Act 47, the continuing drawn out recovery in neighborhood services fund, for the unpaids. And so a lot of that is still going to be commented on, as we are obliged to do, when we submit the report.
And one of the things that's been top of mind for me is performance measurements. The city has repeatedly, for the entirety of this term, said that it's going to implement performance measurements, performance evaluations, so that there's justification for increases, for job promotions, and that still has not come to bear. And it's easy, and it really should be a part of a professionally run city.
A part of our budget process for 2026. And hopefully the documentation will go out to all department heads, if not tomorrow, by Monday. We are going to ask all departments for updated position descriptions and performance evaluations to correspond with the position descriptions. So it is intended to be part of the budget package for 2025.
So
That would be great.
some of what we asked for in the past was quantitative measures for the performance of departments. So, some departments, it's easy. Public Works always lends itself to be easy to be quantitative. Other departments, it's a struggle to come up with statistical analysis to try to quantify the progress that they're making. But it's a great exercise for departments to be able to spend some time and actually try to figure out the key indicators in the processes that they do in their department. And then track that data, just like money. You could track other things. So, paving, give you a sense of how easy it is. Paving, they always talk about, miles of paved road, that's easy. Or sanitation, they talk about tons of trash collected. Public Works lends itself to that. Other departments, not quite as easy, but they don't have to be invented. In municipal government, there's a set of key indicators for police, for fire, for construction, for vehicle maintenance. There are already defined key indicators. What has to happen though is department directors have to start measuring those things. It's more work. But what it does is it gives city council, it gives the mayor, gives you all the ability to actually chart out the work that's being done, as opposed to a sense that things are going well, or that projects are being completed, or they're keeping up with the workload. You could actually have statistical measure. And you don't have to invent this stuff, you just have to adopt it and enforce it amongst your department directors. And I think that's part of what the ICA has always thought would improve city operations, is to have those statistical measures. Understanding that that's a lot of extra work, but it gives so much value to everybody. And it doesn't have to be too onerous, because once you set up a measurement system, you just keep with it. Keep with it forever. Number of vehicles repaired, there's all kinds of measures out there. For police, it's number of Part 1 crimes closed. Investigations, they're out there. Once again, we don't have to invent these. But the point is that it takes a little bit of effort to set up a system and track the system. And then you report it as part of the budgeting process and say, this shows that our departments, which we have the sense are working effectively and efficiently. But now we can show you statistics to back that up. It's a good exercise.
Well, it's also a responsibility for the citizens of Harrisburg, because I think that's the confidence the city needs to keep. And if you don't have the statistics that say we're getting better, we're responding more quickly to concerns, codes are turning around, we've moved codes online application, all those sorts of things. Those are great things that you all can pull out of your back pocket as the administration is trying to tell the citizens that they are really there for the citizens in their best interests.
That's part of what we've recommended in our annual.
There was, as part of each department's budget presentation to council, there was a goals section for each department. But as was observed in many departments, that's easier to do than in others. And in some departments, there was a little more diligence in actually trying to do that. I'll frame it that way. So the seed's planted, but we need to see a little bit more uniformity, a little bit more diligent application.
Mr. Chair, just to close out the discussion, we would require a motion and a second to have you be able to submit the report at the end of.
And there are actually two motions.
Oh, okay.
The first is to do that, and the second is to accept the
Except the
mayor's
mayor's,
letter that
letter.
the budget constitutes an addendum to the 5-year plan.
that would be terrific.
Okay, so on the first,
Okay.
to authorize us, once completed, to submit the Act 203 report. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Second,
Second.
thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion approved unanimously. And then the second motion is to act on the mayor's request to add the excuse me, 2025 budget as an addendum to the 2025 5-year plan.
So moved.
So moved. Right. Kathy, second.
Yes,
All right.
thank you.
Questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously as well. Good discussion, thank you. All right, manager's update.
Mr. Chairman, can I interrupt you just, I misspoke when I was talking about general fund revenue. I said 73 million. It's 71.3. All right, now,
Get that on the record.
yeah, just to be clear.
I do the minutes, so I'll make sure it's right.
And I mean, one of the things that stands out, of course, is our real estate revenue. And that's not the total reason why I would say come down from 73 to that number, but that's, to me, that's more reasonable. Right, at this point.
And in our section 203 report, even in the executive summary, we have identified the concerns about future real estate tax revenue. It's a legitimate concern going forward that we'll have to see how we address that in the next 5-year plan. So,
Great, thank you. COVID just keeps on giving.
it's. I think Kenny's.
Mr. Chairman, may I have a point of personal privilege?
Please.
I would ask that whoever is appropriate to relay it, or all of you relay to the appropriate folks at the city, that I was absolutely astounded by the responsiveness the other night to the tree that fell at the corner of North and Green. I happened to be out late that night and came back in heading toward the river on North Street, and realized that the car in front of me had slowed down, so I followed suit, not knowing what was going on. The tree had completely covered one lane of North Street at that intersection.
It's quite a trend.
It was about 9:30 at night.
What day?
Tuesday, that horrible storm that came through with the winds, Tuesday a week ago.
I was gonna say, I don't remember being that bad just now.
Tuesday a week ago. And I then decided I would go to bed and decided I would go to sleep to the whirring of the mechanical whatever that the city brought in. It was gone by about 11 o'clock, I believe. But I mean, that was just
Jumped on
to
it.
be
So
amazing.
you were astounded in a good way.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
The compliment.
for a change.
I was thinking, I want to rip a hole after this.
That was sounded in a positive way.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
Okay.
put it this way, we don't get that many compliments like that. So,
right.
you know, so especially public works, so it's nice when they get compliments. I thank you very much.
Well, I've been in the city now for more
Jeff can attest
more
to
than
that.
30 years and a lot more than 30 years. And I've never seen the city so responsive.
We have an arborist on.
And Cody was involved in
Okay.
in that, so yeah, he gets a shout out. And you all can't quite see the photo. It's right next door to my house too. And it blew straight down the street and you see the white car
Oh, is
parked
it there?
there.
It's your house.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
Wrong one.
it's about 8 inches away from that car, never touched it, and the branches landed just past the hood.
That's what
So
was planned. That's what the.
luckiest car on the planet. So, anyhow,
Excellent.
but we digress.
That's fine.
I will
But
let
good
them know.
comment, thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm gonna just note that we have our bills paid report, which was distributed to everyone. Now, one thing to note, which is very good, is that we did receive our DCED funding back in January, which was a little late, which was a lot my fault. It was supposed to be earlier in the fall, but we had a little problem with the invoice and the state computer system, which is persnickety. But I was able to finally work it out with the help of a lot of our friends and also TCD. And we did get that all taken care of. So we're well funded going forward, which is great, which is why we can offer things like paying for the PA downtown center for the city, because we have that funding. So if anybody has any questions about the bills paid report, please let me know. I will, at our next meeting, between now and our next meeting, we will have a series of insurance renewals. It's that time of year where our insurance policies get renewed, but I'll be taking care of that after today's meeting. So usually the chair helps me just make sure there's no changes to the policies that
We can do that.
I appreciate that.
Good.
That's
Any,
all I have.
any questions on the manager's update? Okay. So we now go to an agenda item that elicits big sighs. So we are sorry to receive letters of resignation from Wayne Barber and from Bobby Carter, who have both been long-term members and are leaving for other things. Elaine, as I understand it, is able to serve until her replacement is officially appointed. And we do genuinely appreciate that, but we nonetheless will need to act on your intent. And then yours is a little more definite.
I'm going to be leaving the city and
Right.
therefore cannot serve.
Cannot serve. First, we will take a motion to accept with regret those resignations. And so add to that motion our gratitude for your service and diligence and all of the hard work and insight that you've brought to the board.
Before you do that, I just want to say thank you to everyone for allowing me to sit on the board. I've learned a lot and appreciate that. And the reason that I'm resigning is because I'm retiring. from that.
Congratulations.
You had more
Thank
time
you.
for the board there,
Yeah, right.
but it didn't work.
But,
We'll find
That's
something.
right.
but that's the only, it's not, I'll still be here in the city, which is why I had said, yes, I continue to serve until they find a replacement, but that's good and bad news. I'm being
You'll
real.
miss your
Continuing to work, but
participation.
yeah, I'm happy to be retired.
Congratulations.
Mr.
The
Chairman,
chairman make a comment?
Sure, can we put the motion on the table first?
do you want one motion or two motions?
I think one will be sufficient.
So moved.
Okay, and second.
You have to second.
Can I'll second you, you second me.
Okay,
Okay,
second.
all right. Motion's in front of us, guys.
As on behalf of the city, I would like to express my appreciation to both of you for your service and I'm not sure how many years you've been on board, but we thank you very much and wish you well in your future endeavors. Thank you.
And we will have a little bit more to discuss on the point after we vote on the motion.
Sounds good.
So, all right, any further comment on the motion? All those in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And so then is discussion of appointment of successors as well as appointment of incumbents.
Would you like to do a separate motion on the resignation, Audrey, because that motion just covered?
No, that was.
Okay,
Combined. Yes.
So, just to point out, point of order, we will be down to, for at least for a period of time, our minimum for a quorum, which is 3 active members. So not to put pressure on Mr. Hill, Ms. Yvette, and Ms. Barber, but you sort of have to come to all the meetings. If you can't miss anything, at least until we get more people on the board.
Right.
Which I know the chair is working.
Yeah, and that was what I wanted to discuss next, is that we have taken that up. Senator Costa is your appointing authority, Governor Shapiro is yours, Senator Ward is mine, and so we're working on all of those, and Representative Minority Topper is for the still existing vacancy for Ralph Arton.
Yeah.
And so we have been in touch with them again, and the best two, we've had good contacts from Senator Costa and Governor Shapiro, but they said, we don't have a ready stable of available appointees. Could you recommend it? And so we are diligently working to come up with that. And if any of you have ideas, we're going to reach out to Michael as well.
Yes, we talked yesterday.
Okay, good, very good. Thank you. I appreciate that. And so we'll be doing what we can in that respect.
And that was part of the impetus for meeting with Patty Kim, is she's also agreed to shepherd through the names to make sure that the urgency is imparted to the appointing authorities.
Can't miss a meeting, Kevin, sorry.
Well, we'll talk about that.
Last person standing.
Yeah.
We will try to, I mean, once we have others, obviously, but we'll have to work around people's schedule to
Yeah.
make sure we still have all 3 of you at a meeting going forward, even if that means moving the meeting, which is always possible.
And so that's 2 Democrats that will be appointed and 1 Republican,
That's
which
the
is what we're looking.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So if anyone has suggestions, get them. Good talk.
So the rule is, just so I be clear, it's somebody who is either a resident or whose principal place of business is in this city.
Business or appointment.
Either one makes you qualify.
Right.
In other words, you have to have some kind of close nexus.
Right.
And you cannot have business with the city
With the
in
city.
any form.
Sounds good. Keep our eyes open. Okay.
You already have, so thank you.
Yeah,
Yes, you did.
and one possibility, always shaking those trees.
Right. Do we have any other business to come in front of us today? Okay, would you like to?
All right, I think we have a couple of guests in the audience, maybe Eric, you don't know if you have any questions for the group?
A couple observations also to thank Audrey and Elaine. We live stream, so every time there's a meeting, feel free to check out our Facebook page. There's just a note of caution for the resident of Lower Paxton. We had 4 resignations within 4 months, so the quorum thing, that is a big deal. And that means you need to be mindful of it. More concerned about the pace of replacement, because it takes the legislature about an hour to boil minute rights. So we'll see what's going on there. I'm looking back when Gloria Martin Roberts was here, and this was the quote from the board, look forward to a tangible economic strategy. If I heard you correctly, it looks like the mayor was not interested in a plan. So I'm a little confused, because you also noted, Doug, that you had some concerns that the city was moving in the wrong direction, or maybe not the correct direction. So, and the 4 years that we've been coming, I think the economic plan seems to be a pretty big piece that's missing. And I mean, if you look at different aspects, this was confusing for me. You read the 5-year plan and there's a commitment on the budget, there's a commitment to deal with OPEB. Then Neil walks in here and just says, we're not doing OPEB. Which I that was me being astounded. Every budget says you're gonna work on a pilot program. You never do. I have no idea how many pilots you have out there. So the audit findings, What year are we in the audit? What was the last audit year? I mean, these are things that nobody's speaking about that we track. And it's just disturbing to me that some of these things aren't improving. I would also point out at Laxwama, they're not gonna be here forever. They have an option in the 30s. And that's the 2030s, and we've encouraged the county to start looking into what they're gonna do. And it may be a relationship with the facility of 441, I don't know, but. You know, we read the annual report of Laxwama and the time for them to operate. I don't think it'll end probably for the 2030s, that'll have a material impact on the city, moving forward. The neighborhood services fund, I think this is probably the 48th, 50th time I've asked, what's the collection rate? Is there, Brian, do we have a number? What's the collection rate?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I want to say somewhere around 92.
Well, I mean, that's excellent, you know, from where you were,
Right.
it's a
Yeah.
big deal.
Yeah.
And that's the out there collecting trash.
After the collection track.
Yeah, so, you know, when you look for us, just like the 5 things we track with OPEB, the pension, the neighborhood fund, there just seems to be more questions than answers. And you had talked about, I'm not really sure what 5-year plan we're working off right now. I looked at the original one, and the next one that came was pretty modified. So are we, is there a suggestion that we're modifying the modification?
So the way it works, just for your edification, is that the 5-year plan is due right before the budget. So we did adopt a 2025 5-year plan in the fall of 24. But the way the act reads, the budget itself, because it's going to be different than the plan,
Right.
modifies the plan. That's all we did tonight. I realize it's April. And we could have done it as early as January, but we didn't get the letter till now. So all we said tonight is that the 2025 plan, which has been in effect since the fall, was properly modified by the budget. But we're halfway to the 2026 plan, which will be in the fall of 25. It'll be here before you know.
Well, I'm old, so I don't,
That's okay. So much.
well, we used to have there, where are we, what audit has been completed?
I think there's gonna be a section of the report, but we just completed the 22.
Yeah,
And we have not reviewed the final audit document, but we reviewed it with the audit committee. But have we published the final 22 report?
Yeah, the financial reports, which included everything except the statistical section,
Right.
was published on Emma's website
Okay.
for SEC. But we just completed very recently, for the last week or so, the full-blown comprehensive
Okay.
report, the annual comprehensive financial report.
If you remember when we were here in January, we said mistakenly, oh, the 22 is done, and you said, almost.
Yeah.
We're right around the corner, so
Done now.
now we can say the 22 is done.
It was issued, yes, it was issued January 30th is the date of
Okay.
the auditor's report signed.
So if you would be so kind as to send me a full copy of the final document.
Certainly.
But the answer to your question, Eric, which I know where you're going, is that's the 2022 audit, which was completed in January of 2025. And unfortunately, and I think there's many reasons, which the city can elaborate, we have not caught up to where we should be, because right now it would be great if we were working on the 24 budget audit, but we still haven't done the 23 audit, so we're still behind on.
Yeah, so.
That's the fact.
Finance percent off, we have a $257 million budget. We have no choice but to get our audit done on time every year. We have no choice but to have a balanced budget. And over close to easily 82% of our budget is things that we have to do. It's not a lot of flexibility. And I just point out this year was hard. We thought our medical would go up 10, it went up 14.6. So within this discussion, I recognize that there are variables that you can't control, but encumbrance is higher is a statement I've heard a lot over the last 4 years. Not really clear where you guys are at OPEB. I don't think you're anywhere. The same thing with pensions. But the neighborhood, if you're getting 92 collections, I think it was 70 a couple years ago, 7%. Yeah, and I know Chambersburg is like 99.
That's apples and oranges.
Yeah.
That don't compare, but I think the answer is that the concern that the board has is the old receivables. There are still a group of
Millions.
old receivables which require more attention, and there are things going on to address that. But they've been lingering now for years, these old receivables from the past.
Right, no.
They're not current receivables, but they're out there.
Yeah,
So-
so the question, this is the last one, that we're battling with is it's pretty unclear how our federal funding is going. And for us, that could be devastating because that usually kids with special needs. Up to 4.6 million, so I'm wondering if the city has the same type of challenge. I mean, we actually had an experience where we called the Department of Education. Nobody was there. So, I mean, I don't know what the material impact will be for the city. Hopefully, there's no impact for us. It's a small percentage of the revenue, but it does introduce a lot of concern and hand wringing.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, obviously there are federal grants, there's community development block grant. there's
You like, they're calling.
Life
that
remediation
smart
program. Sure, there's federal money that flows into the cities. Yeah, it is a concern.
But Audrey, and you know, if you miss me, I'll give you my address next to you.
You guys can chat.
Yeah.
Thank you very
When I'm
much.
feeling comfortable, I'll call you, Eric.
Brian, do you have any questions for us this evening?
I guess I'm just, for Act 433. Are you guys gonna change it to the, or is it?
You mean Act 124, the ICA?
Yes, because part of it is you have to start trucks, right? And
That's what it
also-
says.
It also affects borrowing, the city of we can't borrow.
I don't think the board has taken a position on what enabling state law at this point. So I know there was some mention of that at the last meeting.
Yes.
Some thought about amending potentially the enabling state law, but the board has never taken a position wanting to make amendments to the state law. It's possible, well, certainly it's not up to these folks. That would be up to the General Assembly and then the governor. But the board has never taken a position in favor of making changes to the enabling legislation. Although it was, you were correct, it was brought up at the last meeting in discussion.
Do you guys know the percentage funding for the pension, like right now? Like for
I'll have to turn to Brian, I'm not sure if he knows where the, based on the last evaluation, what your percentage of funding.
That's the thing, it's 100 or slightly.
It was very high.
Yeah, all three are right
Well,
near.
Harrisburg is unique in that it has, because most municipalities don't fund their pensions as well as Harrisburg has. Traditionally, it's hovered around 100%.
We just had a financial proposal, financial statements given us in the last couple of weeks. We're probably 109 million or better total, and it was slightly over 100%.
If you look, Brian, for every fall, council must approve the minimum municipal obligation, the MMO, for the following year's pension. And on that document, it gives you the official funding percentage. You can look for the one for last fall or wait for the one for this coming fall. But traditionally, the city of Harrisburg is unique, even amongst good municipalities, of having almost the entire liability funded, which is something to be proud of.
No, that is good. I like
It's
it.
very rare, but that's not something they've slacked on in the past.
Delaware County actually.
No, that's great.
But last
Sorry,
year's
what did you
budget,
You said the county's on it.
County's
So
on
don't want to tell you my municipality.
But we go to Pieces and sort of.
yeah, they're now for last year's budget, I think there was an overage, like youth services or something that went from.
Yes. There was this
Oh, let me see.
program.
They made a budget amendment right at the end of the year to cover additional expenditures which were unbudgeted. And then there was a little conversation at city council about you should tell us that earlier. You shouldn't wait so long for us to know about having to make those budget corrections.
Was that the 90,000?
That was the
Yeah,
90,000.
yes.
There was money to move to do it, but it was really a discussion about when should city council know? Did city council have enough information? There was not a problem cobbling together the resources to pay for it in the budget amendment.
It just wasn't planned.
Well, it
No, the
happens.
90,000 was in the
Communication
budget.
discussion.
It was just in a different line. And what they did, they overhired for summer employees,
Right, yes, that's what.
okay, and I agree that they should have known when they hired all the people that they're, well, over, but there were a lot of repeat employees that came back and paid at a higher rate than a new employee. So why they waited to, when they bring that forward, remember, Ryan? Wasn't it brought forward in November?
Okay, we have multiple conversations out here. Let's kind of rein it back
Okay.
in.
Thank you.
So it wasn't a big deal.
But thanks for asking.
That's it.
Yes.
Okay.
Anything you wanna,
Eric stole my thunder here, but I'm curious to know more about the audit process. We haven't received 2022 yet, it's done, let this happen. But we're also obviously minus 2023 and we're just now to do. I was kind of curious on the status of that.
that would be Mr.
Well, we just finished 22. When Bob was hired in December, that's one of the first things we talked about was getting caught up on the audit. So what we'd like to do this year, our goal is to have the 23 audit done by, say, midsummer. And work on the 24 audit, which actually is not delinquent until after September.
Right.
So without, and get it done sometime later this fall. So hopefully by the end of this year, we could be caught up on completely on the audits themselves. I think the reason they got behind, I think, because you had some vacancies and the administrative staff, such as my position, Bob's position. With the rollover of the new accounting system, I think that slowed things down also. So, making excuses or excusing anybody for it, I'm just saying there were reasons for it. And we try to resolve those as we speak.
Other question I had was, I know Jeffrey mentioned, paying for a PA downtown membership. There is the city's position not to utilize that, or?
We haven't gotten a definitive answer from the city. We've offered, but the city has never, that's why I asked if the came up in the conversation. The city has never said no, thank you, but the city has never said thank you either. So I know we have not paid for it, but we've offered, and that offer stands. And I'm sure the chair will bring it up in his next meeting with the mayor.
And it wouldn't hurt if DCED suggested it. Perhaps it was a really good idea.
How much is the membership fee?
You looked it up at one point, but I don't
It's not
remember.
much, it's a couple of $1,000s, I think, but we'd also said that we would help actually formulate the plan once they got, because it's not that difficult once you have examples and you have statistics. And I think we put a number out there. So I think if you're interested, if you can talk to Gloria and let's get the ball
It
rolling.
would go through Ms. Martin, but it would also, I'm sure I'd be happy to attend a meeting with her and the PA downtown center, so we try to get all the minds on the same page. I'm sure DCD is a big fan of the PA down there.
And it's Julie Fitzpatrick is the executive director down there, and she's always willing to help. And has some wonderfully progressive ideas that I think sometimes she wants to look for guinea pigs too. So that,
Oh, we love
meaning that if there's some really innovative ways to look at neighborhood revitalization, those sorts of things, there are efforts that can be done, some self-rule initiatives. And since she's here, it would be a wonderful way to kickstart some of those ideas.
Happy to help. Any other questions we have for you? Thank you for coming. We appreciate it very much.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
thank you. And next meeting is June 25th, presuming a quorum.
We'll be there.
Lane will be.
Elaine will work with Ashley too.
Yeah, you would expect an alternative development.
Yeah, those,
And you can call in for a form.
forum must be present
You know,
in person.
we'll chat about that. I
Oh,
think that
okay.
applies just to boroughs.
Okay, well, I'll let my general counsel.
Okay, they're chatting.
I stated it as an official and
We'll chat.
I came from this man, so.
Okay.
It's his job.
Okay,
Sounds good.
all right. All right, well then, motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved.
Okay.
We are adjourned. Thank you
Thank you.
at 4:13.
Nice.